Hello and welcome to sim.bc, where it right now is 15:45 on the strike, mate. We're talking exactly, not even a second, not even a millisecond over, people. We're precise, am I right? Just gonna share a fun fact with you. You know, I've set my alarm on my phone, right? I'm always setting my alarm for like recording. You should record at 7 o'clock. But since I always want to do things, ahead of time, I always want to be a bit ahead of schedule. I've always seemed to record at this time between, 2 and 5, so I'm always ahead of my schedule, which is awesome in a way, but it just feels like I can't even keep to my own schedule that I'm saying that I'm making, because believe me, I have a physical one. I have made the schedule over like my days so that I know like this is when I go to the gym, this is when I'm supposed to record, this is when I'm going out and walking, all of them strict things. By the way, today is the first day that the gym is opening, and for the first time that I'm going to go there, woohoo, since I came back from France, which is amazing because my life is falling apart without structure. So if I hadn't had, these things, or this, not just this one, but this overall, this little project, I probably wouldn't know what to do. I probably would engulf myself with all different manners of school studies, because I would just be like, I don't know, living in the library to find some form of comfort in structure. But I'm going back to the gym today, so the structure is going to be there. It's going to be real, it's going to be great, it's going to be amazing, mates, if I manage to get there, because it has been snowing quite a lot today. And I mean, like, a lot of snow has fallen. I'm talking, buses not going. I'm talking people can't drive their cars. I'm talking people's cars buried in snow. And this is, in Sweden, when the trains stop going. Not like in the UK, where I've heard that it's just one grain of snow that comes down. One single piece of snow comes down, lays on the track, and the entire country just stops. No. We're used to this. Like, this is our business. We're used to this. And still, the trains did stop today. So it was like, unfortunate. What I'm trying to convey here is that it has been snowing a lot. But that's not what you're here for, are you, mates? You're here to talk about some questions and what we're going to get into today. Just gonna quickly mention, shameless advertising, self-advertising, that I recently released a new video about a song that I recently made, another original track. Yay, me. Anyway, mates, we're going to get into rephrase yes or no questions, if possible, mates, if possible. Just as we talked about when we talked about scaling and matrices, avoid matrices if you don't have to use them, and use scaling as much as possible, as long as it makes sense, because you just can't just shove in things all of the time. Maybe sometimes you will need yes or no questions, and we will get into all of that. But before we do, mates, guess what we're gonna do? I'm giving you 3 choices here, right? You've guessed? Exactly, we're going to recap the latest video so that you have the context. If this is the only video you're watching, right, you might be sitting here and thinking like, he is referring to stuff I haven't even heard about. So, or I haven't even heard of. So we're going to start off reviewing some of the former stuff. So this is all about tips and tricks for making an in-between question that is not too hard and not too easy and is interesting to your audience or for your audience. As we have stated a countless number of times at this point, we know that people tend to drift both in and out of conversation when not feeling engaged, and that is the key word here, engaged, which makes them having a harder time understanding the context in which a question is asked, and hence making said question, the question, a harder experience, even though it objectively, based on the other people in the room, might have been an easy one. So asking necessary questions in order to keep audience engagement is one thing, but it also needs to be kept short and simple. Not short in the sense of a short discussion, but rather that the question should take about 15 to 30 seconds to formulate and not 10 long minutes where people can drift in and out. And simple, not in the way that it should be an easy question, but in the sense that you should have one objective to answer, not 15 different ones. Because, well, people will just get lost. Ask direct questions, not aggressively direct and not abstractly indirect either, but direct enough so that the audience knows that what the answer is that you're looking for, because if they don't, then they might think that the question is excessively hard or too easy based on the miscommunication between you and the audience. Posing one question at a time can help you as a lecturer to control the development of a discussion while simultaneously engaging the audience through their own interaction in the form of answers. Plus, since the discussion will be broken up into different voices taking part, it's less likely for someone to drift out or completely fall asleep during the presentation of a subject. Avoid leading and biased questions, no matter how much they can gain you personally, right? because it generally does not benefit the group. This approach might close out future perspectives that otherwise could make the discussion better and more vibrant and more alive. Remember to speak your respondent's language in order to not alienate a part of your audience and make everyone feel engaged. Rather that you introduce new terms during the course of the session than being unsure if they know it from before and, not introduce it at all. Sometimes people will think that this is boring, that you're reintroducing the same thing. Sometimes you will add a different twist to the term and spark an interest in it yet again. This part is really, really hard and is unfortunately only gained through trial and error and error and error and error. Use scaling whenever possible, when it makes sense, in order to make an easy question a bit more complex through adding another layer to the conversation, and simultaneously making a hard question easier by letting the audience being able to rely on that. Well, this is just my opinion, this is just how I feel. And then I'm gonna recap the quote from yesterday about metrics and grids. Among the many sources of potential errors that can affect surveys are respondents themselves. They sometimes misinterpret questions, respond in socially acceptable ways, or give easy answers in hopes that a more interesting question is just around the corner. So that is where we're standing, people. Wow, I can't even scroll further down in my document because we're at the last page, even though we have lots of different things to be talking about, because I've been stacking up quite a lot down here. Anyway, I'm not going to read off that. The only thing we're going to talk about now is rephrase yes or no questions if possible. And why? You might sit in there like, but why? But why should I be rephrasing a yes or no question? Isn't a yes or no question good? It's a closed question, right? It's not a open question. I don't want to get different answers. Well, you're wrong. Most of the time, you don't want a yes or no question. If you want people to feel engaged, they don't feel engaged if they say, yeah. Or if they feel, say, no. If you as a lecturer go around and you want to control how the development is going in the group, right? You want to control how people are interpreting the subject. You can't just go around and say, are you following me, mate? Yeah, you there in the front row, you following me? And they're saying like, yes. If they say that, that's the same as, I'm not listening at all. I mean, they totally answered your question. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that you have formulated that question so badly that they can say yes without actually proving that they're following what you're saying. And if you, even more dangerously, if you think that they actually follow you, but it turns out that they didn't, when it comes to the exam, when it comes to the final examination, if you're a manager and you have a team, and it comes to the final presentation in front of the board, and it turns out that half of your team doesn't understand what you're doing, that can have some ramifications, some huge backlashes, and some enormous, consequences for both the team, the company, or the students in lecture halls and so on and so forth for the entire course that you're taking part in. No, what you want to do is rephrasing that question in such a way so that if the person is answering with a yes, they will say something else, but it will mean the same thing. So you can still have a closed question, but you're looking for a specific answer. So for instance, you're going around and you're saying, well, in the beginning of this subject, or rather, not in the beginning maybe, that's perhaps a bit harsh. Maybe you would have liked to made more controlled questions. And I know, you're just gonna state this before we get into it, that many people, or rather, especially students, right, don't want to answer in front of the rest of the group. They just don't want to. So you are left with one guy or one girl who always just like raises their hand and saying, well, is it this? And you're like, no, it's not. When you're asking controlled questions, so try to introduce that quite early in the course so that people will know that you will be asking controlled questions to control the room. But what I'm saying is that instead of saying a yes or no question like, are you following me, mate? Are you following? Yeah? No? Yeah? No? Yeah? Yeah? Because then most people are just going to say like, yes. And they're going to look you straight in the eye, dead in the eye, not listen to what you're saying and say yes. Or they're going to sit like this. I mean, have you, just a side note, right? Have you ever felt that you've been into the situation when someone is asking you something, or when someone is talking and you don't quite know what you're going to do when they're talking to you? If it's someone with authority over you, so you sit there like, you look super serious, you look straight at them, and you just, you nod constantly, and sometimes after like every second or third sentence you say, yeah, yeah, yes, because that's the same thing, right? They will think that that's reassuring, the person that you're talking to, but you You will just sit there and be like, I have no idea what they're talking about. I drifted out 15 minutes ago. I'm just sitting here nodding. Why am I nodding? Is everybody else looking at me? You see what I'm saying here? Not that that's the case all the time, but that can happen because you tend to do that. I tend to do that. It's bad, I know, but it's still a thing that happens. But the person, even, as I said, even worse, the person that you're talking to is probably going to be like, oh, this person really gets what I'm saying. Here I am explaining the entire course, right? The entire project that we're going to do as a team. And this person right here, my man, my woman, girl, whatever you say, right? Is following up on everything, just nodding and saying, yes, I understand. And that lecturer, that team manager might feel like this is someone who's really into what I'm saying. Once you, on the other hand, is sitting there thinking like, yes, wonder if trains can fly. What would happen then? So you're not actually following them. That's why you need, and I'm going to get back to the idea here, to the problem. That is why you need to phrase something in such a way that it's not yet a yes or no answer, even though it's a yes or no question. See what I'm saying? So if you say, oh, you can start with it. It's no problem starting with a yes or no question. If you say, do you follow the course? And they say yes. Or do you follow what we're doing here at this business? And they say yes. Well, then you can rephrase that question, covering the same, the same phrase, the same content should still be conveyed. But since they have said that, oh yeah, I understand it, now you can ask them something that is related to what they just stated that they understood, and they will be like, yeah, yes, giving you the answer. So for instance, if we're talking about, let's see if I have a good example. If we're talking about watches, mates. And you're saying, do you follow what I'm saying here? I've been talking about watches for a while. And they're saying, yes, you've been talking about how you construct watches, what a watch is made off of. Then you can ask, what is this? A control question, right? Because they've said, yes, I understand what you're saying, and you've gone through the wristband. Now you're asking, what is this? If you just ask, do you follow what this is? They can say, yes. But you can ask, what is it? It's kind of the same thing, because if they've said yes before, they should know it now. And then they're going to either say, oh yeah, that's easy, mate. That's a wristband that's connected to the watch that makes it able to sit on your, on your wrist. Therefore, it's a wristband. Easiest, easy peasy cake. Or people will say, yes, I'm following. And then you're saying, what is this? And they're going to say, and then they will start looking down, try to avoid eye contact, hope that you're going to pick someone else. You see, the normal stuff. And that's never good. So try to, if you've gotten a yes, or if you've gotten a no, try to rephrase that question. Because it can be the other way around as well. I know that I've been pushing the yes idea, that people aren't actually understanding when they're saying yes. But it's equally as possible that someone is saying no because they don't believe in themselves. So therefore, it's equally as important that you rephrase the question in such a way that they can't just say no, but they will actually prove that they don't understand it, or rather that they actually did understand it. Because you can be asking someone something that sounds really complex. So for instance, I can say, what is the module that is implied when connecting a physical behavior between the arm and the watch? Let's just say I made that up on the spot, right? So don't criticize me on that. And you can ask someone in the front row, like, do you understand what I'm saying? And they will be like, no, I don't. And then you can rephrase that and saying, well, but what is this then? And then that person is going to say, oh, that's a wristband. And you can say, yes. And that is what is connecting the whatever I've said, wherever I just stated. And then that person either will say, oh, I knew that, but I didn't understand the previous question, the yes or no question that you stated that was kind of closed, even though this was equally as closed. See what I'm saying? So I'm trying to convey here, right, in the end of this, I'm trying to convey the idea that if you're saying a yes or no question as a control question, as you usually do, try to rephrase that, because if you have gotten a yes or a no, that's not the same as saying, did you understand or didn't you understand? Do you know this or do you not know this? Do you agree with this? Do you not agree with this? Because a yes or no, most of the time in a public area, it's just same as, in a public space, let's just say lecture hall, well, it's a private space, but let's say in a space with lots of people that are listening to your response. Usually a yes or no that there doesn't mean that much. Either they're saying yes because they don't understand, and they don't want to be called out on that, or they're saying no because they don't want to take the risk of looking like they don't understand. See what I'm saying here? So it's this social peer pressure that you want to be a part of the group. Simultaneously, if you're looking around and nobody else seems to understand, then you can say no. If you're looking around and everybody's looking at you, giving you the vibe that, oh, everybody else knows, I might as well say yes because I don't want to drag out the lecture, right? But that's not what the lecturer wants. That's not what your team manager wants. The team manager doesn't want to have a presentation of the project and then 5 minutes afterwards, after it's done, everybody comes individually and asks him or her, well, what did we actually do? What was this actually about? What is this? What is this? And the team manager is just gonna be, oh my days, why didn't you ask that before? I've had 5 questions about this at the same time. So if you think that you don't understand, I'm just gonna say this, as a student or as an audience, if you think you haven't understood, then there's probably more people like you who haven't understood either. So be the one that volunteers and asks and says like, I don't understand, or something like that, or you do understand, and then push the idea of why you understood, not just a yes or no question. And if you are as the lecturer or the manager says, do you understand this, yes or no? If they give you a yes or no, try to rephrase it to see if did you actually or didn't you? Did you actually know this from before, but you just don't know it yourself? Or do you think that you know this, but you don't actually know this because you haven't actually been listening to what I introduced lastly? Anyway, mates, lastly then at that point, that will be everything for me from today, mates. Tomorrow we're going to look into, I'm just going to move me around it because I moved me so gracefully over the text. Take your questions for a test drive, which is equally as important, I would argue. I'm going to try and rank these as well when I'm done in the review. Have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow with another one.